Just waiting now. Okay, so we're on time and it's time to start the webinar. And I'm absolutely delighted to have my colleague Jenn Jones, who's located in Canada, but she's our user experience designer. And over the past year, while she's been with us, she's been doing some excellent work researching how people are using Jolly and also implementation in schools. But more than anything, the voice that we needed from our teachers and also the clients who are using it. And we're always listening to you, the trainers, as well. So it's a collaborative effect as always. So Jen is going to talk to us today about the new assessment app that she has been developing. It's a wonderful resource, and I'm not going to steal her thunder by letting her talk about it completely. I will help with questions during the webinar, but anything that's quite a long question, I'll keep to the end. Also, there's no certificates for this webinar because it is internal, and additionally, you will get a copy. So what we're hoping you will do is enjoy the webinar and it will help you want to investigate even further into this brilliant app. So Jen, I'm going to hand over to you so that you can get started and also please go ahead. I'm going to remove myself from the pin so that you are now the main presenter.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Can you see my screen okay, Yvonne?
Yes, we can perfectly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that introduction. I know I've met some of the trainers in the past at the trainers conference, or we also had a few meetings. And also, I would just say that I have sent out an email to a few people to take a look at this ahead of time to just give some feedback, and the feedback's been really good. So I'm really excited today to share it with all the trainers. And I will just say that what I'm about to share with you might feel overwhelming because sometimes when something's new, it does feel overwhelming. There's a lot to absorb. So what I'm going to do is try to walk you through it really slowly, but also I have some videos that you can watch later on to really help you guide through it. And I'll share with you later where the videos are. So please don't feel too bad if you're feeling like this is overwhelming because it is really new. Okay. And Yvonne, if you feel like I'm not explaining something very well, just jump in and let me know and I can explain it a little bit better.
That's
So
fine.
today, I just want to share with you a little bit about why we use assessments, why teachers use assessments. And as Yvonne said at the beginning, when I spoke with a lot of teachers at the beginning of my time with Jolly, a lot of teachers were saying that one thing that they felt that was missing was more support with assessments. As you already know, there are paper assessments that go along with the program, but what people wanted was another way to do assessments that would save them time and also give them a lot of important insights. So the paper assessments were really great. And all I did was I took the paper version and made it digital. So I worked really closely with the authors to make sure that I was keeping to the program and that each assessment really reflected the place in the program so that there was no big surprises. And also the words that were chosen are words that would work in different accents, because of course, sometimes with the different phonetic sounds in American accent versus British accent, it can kind of change it a little bit. So we worked really closely to ensure that the words that were chosen for the assessments made sense. So first, let's start with just saying that the main purpose of this is to empower teachers to help every child become confident readers and writers. That is the main goal. We want to be able to teach children to read and write and assess to see whether they're understanding what we're teaching them. And if they're not understanding it, we want to know that so that we can help dive in and give a little bit more support. So that is the main purpose of this. Um, right. So why are teachers assessing pupils? So obviously we want to understand any gaps, any misunderstandings within the program. We want to ensure that all the different skills that we're teaching are strong. Sometimes what you might find is that students are better at one skill than another skill. And we want to be able to identify that so that we can reinforce the weaker skill and bring it up. We want to also do it so that we can inform our teaching, so that we know my class in general is struggling with this. So therefore, I'm going to spend a little bit more time with that concept. Also, sometimes it might be just one or two or a small group of pupils that are struggling with something. If we find that, we're going to take that small group aside and provide a little bit of extra support to make sure that they get the help that they need. And this digital tool does a really great job of giving you those insights so that you know which children have similar needs so that you can create targeted intervention groups. And also, we want to be able to track progress over time so that we can see that growth. It's really motivating for pupils to see and understand that. And when you meet with parents, to be able to tell them what areas their child needs a little bit of extra support with, and to reward and celebrate when they are doing well. In some places, people also need a little bit more data to support to prepare for things like Ofsted or governments, or your head teacher, for example, might want a little bit more detailed information. So depending where you are in the world, this also can be really valuable for that reason. When are we assessing pupils? Well, one thing that's really great with the way this digital assessment tool works is that it's really flexible. You can really use it how works best in your school. So obviously you need to know what your government or your school expectations are. So in some schools, you need to do an assessment before each reporting period. So if that's true in your region, then you want to be able to teach, assess, and then report your findings. We've designed it so that it is really flexible. So there are two main parts to the assessment. There's a reading component and a writing component. So with the writing component, as you can see here on the left, you've got these six main parts of the assessment. And these parts are into subgroups like groups 1 to 3 or 4 to 7, etc. On the reading side, and this will make a little bit more sense when I actually walk you through the program, which I will very soon. On the reading side, you've got the same groups, but then you also have these subcategories. So with the reading, you can break it down into even smaller chunks. So I could, for example, I could teach group 1 and then assess group 1, teach group 2 and assess group 2, teach group 3 and assess group 3. Writing needs to have all of group 1 and 3 together. Okay, so it provides you a little bit more flexibility in that way. Who are we assessing? Many schools around the world do require or expect all pupils to be assessed. However, in some situations, you might find that that doesn't work for you. Maybe you don't have the time needed to devote to that kind of assessment. So in that situation, you can, if you choose, to just assess those pupils that you feel need that to ensure that those pupils are doing well. You might be able to tell that some children are doing really well with phonics and you don't feel the need to assess them. That is your choice as a teacher. In some situations, you might feel that you assess all pupils less often, and then you want to take your struggling learners and assess them more often. That's another option. And again, the program's built so that it can be really flexible, and the assessment tool is very flexible with how you use it. So you need to kind of figure out what works for your school and in your country. How to assess? So I will do a walkthrough right after this, but just basically there are two main parts to the assessment. There's a writing component and a reading component. With the writing component, what I think could be the best is to try to assess all of the pupils at one time. Now you might have a few pupils that might not work with, and you might take them aside and do a smaller group. But if you can try to assess as many people together, it will save you a lot of time. Whereas with reading, it really does need to be a one-to-one. So you need to be able to sit with that pupil and get them to respond while you while you mark in their answers, whether it's correct or incorrect. With the reading, you can print off a sheet to provide them with, and then only use one device to mark your answers. Or you can sync up two devices. So you can have two iPads or an iPad and a laptop. They can have the iPad they're swiping through and you're marking the answers on the second device. So you can have two devices or one device with paper. And I think, in a way, it would be best to start with the writing test first so that you collect all the papers. Do not mark them, just collect them all. And then when you do your one-to-one, let's say I'm sitting with one child and I'm doing the one-to-one, they're doing the reading assessment. I finish the reading assessment. Now, what I do is I get their writing paper from the day before and I scan through it and I put the input, the results on my device while that child goes and gets the next pupil for my next reading assessment. That will help you save time. And I feel like as you go through this process, the best advice that I have for you is to really try it out. If you don't have children to try it with, that's okay. You can just actually input results that you think, like just for fun, just put in any results and look at the data. And that will help you to really understand the program better because sometimes it's hard to imagine it until you actually try it out. Okay. So I'm going to take you through Jolly Assessments right now. So here is our main phonics page. And one thing I just want to mention is that the nav bar on the side here might look completely different to you if you're used to using Jolly Classroom. The biggest change that you'll notice is this top section here above this line. All of these categories here connect with the class. So I've created a pretend class called Butterfly Class. I've imported pupils and I have done pretend assessments to show you what it might look like. All of these here, phonics, activities, worksheets, my pupils, and the assessments all connect to this one class. This is really important because if, let's pretend, at my school there were other classes, so let's go into the Robin class. This, let's pretend, is my colleague's other kindergarten or reception class. All of this information will connect to their class. And equally, if you had spelling, grammar, and punctuation, it will look different. Spelling, grammar, punctuation, the program looks completely different. It is a different program, and there is no assessments attached to it because we don't have assessments for spelling, grammar, punctuation yet. I don't know if we will, but we don't have it. So we do have one for phonics. Okay, so that's the first thing that you need to understand. Everything below is not connected to that class. They're all general things. Okay, so let's go in and pretend we're going to do an assessment. First of all, I just want to also point out that this phonics page is like a table of contents in a way. You can see that we've got step one, we have groups 1, 2, and 3, and then we have our first assessment here. So you can see that we have created assessment buttons throughout the program so that you can understand at a glance where the main 6 assessments sit. Okay, so I can click here or I can click here. It doesn't matter. They will both take me to assessments. Okay, so if I click here, this will take me to where I choose what assessment I want to start. So remember, there's reading and writing assessments. So if I start with a reading assessment, for example, I can select the assessment that I want to start with. So let's pretend I want to start with this assessment, groups 1, 2, and 3. In order to start, I cannot start yet because I haven't selected a pupil. So let's select a pupil and I'm going to start an assessment. Okay, so this is like an overview of the questions that the child will get. There are 3 groups in this assessment. Now I can print off this page if I want. So if I just go back and show you, I can print off this page right here. It will download it to my computer and I can open it up. And here's a printable that I can print and put in front of the student ahead of time. And they can look at this sheet while I input the results. So I'm assessing Trish. I'm going to start my assessment. And as Trish says the sound, I can mark it correct. Maybe she says this one wrong. so I mark it wrong, and so on. Okay, that's one way that I can do it. If, as Trisha's doing it, she's getting a lot of them right, and I know Trisha's really strong, I can just say, mark all correct. I know Trisha's a strong phonics student, so I'm going to start off by marking them all correct. And then as she goes through it, I will just click and change it to incorrect if she does make a mistake. So as she's going through it, I can just change any responses to incorrect as I go. But that's an option. Now that works if I've printed off the page and I've put it in front of her. If I want to have two devices, I want to give Trish an iPad to look at, and I'm going to mark the results here. I can click on flashcard mode over here. If I click on flashcard mode, just close that. This is what my page will look like. So I have the card here, and I can mark it correct or incorrect. And as I am doing this, it will sync up to Trisha's iPad. How it syncs is first I log into mine, and then I log into the same Jolly Classroom account on the iPad. On the nav bar on the side, the navigation bar on the iPad, I swipe up, and when it does that, a yellow button will appear to say sync device. And I click yes to sync it. And then when I have this screen, R, she'll see R on hers. Now, this might sound a little confusing to you, and I have a video that shows this exactly. So you can watch the video and really understand how this works. But basically what happens is it's synced. So she sees R, she doesn't see this at the bottom, and she doesn't have the arrow button. All she sees is this card with the letter on it. When she says the sound and I mark correct, her iPad will change at the same time. Then here are the words. She says them. I'm marking them correct or incorrect as we go through it. And at the very end, they'll all be synced here. These will all be marked incorrect or correct. When I'm done, this is the most important thing. When I'm done, I must click save and finish. Okay, that's the most important thing. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to change my results, but it's really important that we click save and finish there. Okay, that is the reading assessment. So again, with reading, you can download the reading sheet. And do you remember I also said that you can do smaller assessments if you want to? So let's pretend I'm in step 2, unit 7 to 13, and I want to only assess on the first 3 units, 7 to 10. I can click on this and click on the child, click start, and it will only assess on that. So in unit 7 to 10, I've got letter sounds, I have words, and I have tricky words. Now, there's one more thing that is really important to understand. Later in the program, there might be a grapheme like this that the child is meant to say it in 2 different ways. So if I just show you what it looks like in flashcard mode, so I've got oi, and then, okay, this is a great example. So we've got the sound I, and I need the child to say, actually, wait, this is, yeah. So in this situation, I want the child to say it in multiple ways. So if the child says I, like this, and I mark it right, and they don't say anything else, I can prompt them to say, can you think of another way to make this sound? If they can't, then I just mark them incorrect and move on. If they can, then I can mark it correct and move on. Here's another example. They're going to see this OW, and I want them to say it in 2 different ways. If they can say that, then I say, great, good job. Can you think of another way? And if they can, I can mark it correct and move on. Okay. So that's for graphemes that have more than one way to say them. If I also show you sentences, because this comes up as well. So let's pretend I just want to do this last section of step 2. I choose my child, start assessment, you'll notice at the bottom that there are also sentences. The child will not see all 4 sentences at once. They will only see one sentence at a time. They read the sentences. As they're reading it, I'll mark any mistakes that they might make. So let's pretend they say, he saw a few, and then they're struggling with this word here, and they start to pronounce it incorrectly. So I'll mark it as an incorrect. If they sound it out a few times and do finally say the correct word, I can mark it as a correction. So they've self-corrected it. They keep reading. Maybe they pronounce this as months instead of moths, and they don't correct it. So that is a mistake. So you can see down here, this is tracking how many errors they make. Any error they make, we'll move it down here. And as they make mistakes, it moves it down. But if they self-correct, then it doesn't count towards their total score. Okay, we want to encourage them to self-correct as they're reading. But however, tricky words are, yeah. So tricky words, same thing. If they read it and then self-correct it, then it's a self-correct. So we want to encourage that. And if we make a mistake, we tap by accident and we make a mistake, we can just cycle through and erase it. So, and then we must remember to save and finish when we're at the end. I'm not going to save it though, because I don't want to change my results. That's reading. Let me show you through writing. Or Yvonne, should I pause there if there's any questions on reading? Writing is quite similar, but I wasn't sure if
No, there's no questions so far, so please go
there's
ahead.
any. Okay. So I'll continue with writing. Writing is really similar. The main differences are, first of all, we need to download a writing sheet. So I'll show you what that looks like when it's loaded up. This is a blank writing page that you'll want to print off ahead of time and hand out to the students so that when the teacher says the sound like s, they'll write down that. Number 2 is ah. They'll write it down, etc. You'll notice that number 10 has 3 little lines. That's because there's 3 ways to make the sound k. So we want them to write C, K, and CK. So this writing sheet is valuable. Of course, you don't have to print it off. You can get them to write it on just lined paper. But the value with this is that, particularly later on, you'll notice that there are multiple ways to write sounds. So here, number 4 has 3 ways, number 5 has 4, number 6 has 4, number 1, 2, and 3 all have 2 different ways to make a sound, like oi, for example, O-I and O-Y. So this sheet does have a visual guide to remind children. Rather than you just verbally saying, could you write 2 ways to write oi? They might forget, but here they can visually see that there are 2 lines, so they know they are meant to write 2 different graphemes here. So I think printing it off is really valuable. Once you've printed it off and handed it out to everyone, remember this is when you're going to do it as a whole class or certainly in groups so that you can do it to as many people at one time as possible. When you're doing it first, you need the teacher questions. So you need to know what questions you're asking. So click on teacher questions, and here it's got the letter sounds, trick keywords, and sentences. So you can either say them yourself or you can click on it. I feel like actually I'm noticing a couple of mistakes here. There should just be 1 for that. This is an error. I don't know why. Let me just go back and see on a different unit. Okay, like here. So oi. Oi. You can click on it. Oi, they're meant to write O-I and O-Y. Air. Air. I think I'm just going to need to re-look through some of these things just carefully to make sure there's no errors there. And by the way, because this is brand new, you might find errors. And if you do, please do let us know so that we can make those changes. We have looked through it many, many times, but you know how it is. You're always going to find little tiny mistakes here and there. So it will take time to make things perfect. So do let me know if you find anything. Tricky words.
Always.
Same thing.
Love.
You can say it or they can say it. Here for the sentences,
I saw her cover the food with a cloth after lunch.
so it's all there, or you can say it yourself and get the students to write it down. Remember, after you collect all the sheets, don't mark them because we want to save on time as much as possible. So what I suggest is when you're sitting down one-to-one with a child doing the reading assessment, you can come here and input the results. Here's how you do it. First, you select the test that you're inputting results on. Let's pretend I'm inputting step 2. I select the child that I'm inputting the results, and then I click on input results. So what I suggest the fastest way to do it is to start by making them all correct. Now I'm going to scan their paper to see if they've made any errors. So I'm scanning through their paper and I see, okay, they didn't write the sound A here. They didn't write underscore E. So I'm going to mark that incorrect. This one's incorrect as well. And I'm just scanning through it. Here, these ones are capitals, writing capital letters. So maybe they didn't write this capital correctly and they didn't write some. And then here, sentences is very, very similar to how you mark up sentences for reading. So first of all, if they've made any spelling errors, we click on them like this. And you can see that it's moving down the scoring here. If they have written a word that is a plausible spelling, for example, the word sister, let's pretend they wrote sister, but instead of ER at the end, they wrote UR, for example, or IR. That is still that sound. So you can say that it's a plausible spelling error. So you can make it purple. So the instructions are over here. Any plausible spelling mistakes that they're using their phonics knowledge, but it's not quite right, you can mark it as purple and it will not count towards here. So if it's incorrect, it would count, but if it was a plausible spelling, because at this point, we don't expect them to always understand which to use or which oi to use, for example. If they're using their phonics knowledge, you can mark it like this. The only exception is that we do expect them to spell tricky words correctly. So if it is a tricky word like come, it must be correct. You cannot mark it as plausible. It's meant to be right or wrong for tricky words. And again, remembering to save at the end is really important. So that's a run through of how to do assessments. And I would also mention that when you come to the main assessment dashboard, which is this one right here, the main assessment dashboard, let's look at groups, step 1, group 1 to 3. You can see that I've done a pretend assessment here with some pretend children that I put in. A couple things I want to point out. You've got your recap, a quick snapshot here of your class. I want to see all of my pupils in the green category. Dark green is really strong. So I've got 6 pupils there, which is great. Good, which is 80% to 94% is good too. I want that. I want my pupils to be in the green category. So I've got 18 pupils in green. But I've got 5 in developing, so 50% to 79, and 2 that are quite low. I also have 1 pupil that has not finished being assessed yet in this category, so in the gray category here. If I want to come over here and see more trends, I can break it up into reading and writing categories. I can look at all assessments as a whole, or right now, let's pretend I just did step 1, group 1 to 3 assessment, and I want to look at the data. So I can filter here, and I can also filter by different categories. Now, I haven't explained these categories to you yet, Let me show you where you set them up in your, sorry, in your account, no, in your school management, under settings. This is where you can change the accent or your print. And this is also where you can set up your tracking categories. We suggest no more than four. Four is a lot to look at. So you've got pupil premium, which is a really common term used to track in the UK. In America, free and reduced lunch is a different version of a similar thing. You've got send, you've got lots of different categories here. If you don't see a category that you like, for example, some of my schools have mentioned to me that they might want to track their traveler children. What I would suggest is calling it at risk. So you just decide our traveler children, we're going to call them at risk. So we're going to select that category. So once you've decided what categories you want, when you look through your assessments, you can look like, I want to see my pupil premium children. I want to see how they're doing in reading and in writing. So I can see my pupil premium children are here. My other children that are not pupil premium are here, and my whole class are here. So I can start to look at these different categories here, my SEND children. So a lot of my SEND children, they're in the orange and red. So maybe I want to address that. EAL, I can look at that. Usually EAL children that are learning English as a second language, Phonics will work really well for them. So you would expect to see a lot of green in this category. And if I'm not seeing that, then maybe that child just needs a little bit of extra support in order to bring them up to where they need to be. The other great thing is that I can see trends on the side here as a class. So in general, my class is in the reading green category for both letter sounds and words. But writing words is a little bit more challenging for my class. They're orange. This is an average. So that might mean that when I'm doing whole class instruction, I might spend a little bit more time on writing words than the other things, because this is a weakness of my class. Down here are my extra support groups. So my red pupils and my orange pupils. And I've got names here. So this is also great to create some intervention groups. So I can see that letter sounds, Jimmy is struggling in reading and writing words and letter sounds. I also can see that Jimmy, Alfonso, and Chloe, this might be a really nice group for me to target writing letter sounds, and also it's the same group of pupils that might need a little extra support with writing words. So I can look at this and decide maybe I can create a couple of intervention groups. Of course, it depends on your capacity, how many adults you might have or how much time you might have. Will inform your decision on how many groups you can have. So this is really valuable for that reason. From this assessment dashboard, I can always start an assessment or I can add an observation. So say I was working with a group of pupils, Caitlin, Mimi, and Priya, and I want to write a comment about those three pupils. I can do that, and I can write a comment here and save my observation. Those comments will be saved in each pupil file. So on my class, these are all of my pupils in my class. And one thing that I've got my tags from Pupil Premium sent, so I can see at a glance who is in which category. But the most powerful thing is to look at the stars. So the star is a snapshot overview of each child and how they're doing. So I want to see the majority of my class in green, which I can see a lot there, but I might also want to see who is in red and orange. And so I can see them here. And growth. After you've done 2 assessments, you will see whether children are improving or going down from the last assessment. This can be really valuable as well because, for example, I've got Chloe here who's still orange. That means she's not quite where I want her to be. However, she has improved by 12%, which is great. So although she isn't yet where I want her, I still want to really celebrate that she's made a lot of growth, which is really powerful. Same with Jimmy. Jimmy's still in red and he is struggling. However, he has made an improvement of 9%. So that's really valuable. So the growth is really important because sometimes we might miss these kind of moments where children that are still not quite where we want them to be are making steps in the right direction, which is what we really want. And equally, the other thing is that sometimes pupils are in the green, but they're going down. Like Harry. Why is Harry gone down 7%? I might want to click on him to learn a little bit more. I've got a snapshot of his strengths and his focus area. Looks to me like writing tricky words is more challenging for him. So maybe I need to target that with him. And maybe also sometimes it's just about informing parents. Could you please work a little bit more on his writing tricky words? And if they know that, a lot of parents are really supportive and want to help, and then that might address his decline. I also can see, I'm going to show you different people because I put in more information in Erin. So I'm just going to show you Erin right now. This also can filter and do it alphabetized by first name, or you can do it by last name. So I want to find Erin's account. I'm going to click on Erin because I've put in more data for Erin to show you. So I can see his strengths. He's doing really well with a lot of writing, but his reading is more challenging. So I can see that reading is an area that he needs to work on. I also can see this overview star chart. So the star chart is separated also into reading and writing, but the overview is a combination of both of them. So do you see here that this is grayed out? If it's grayed out, it means that his assessment is not finished. So he's doing great overall here. By the way, these are the first few assessments. So these are categorized by each main assessment. So there are 6 main assessments. We also have this optional letter names assessment. Some schools will want to do that and others might choose not to. And we've also included a phonics screen check that's done in the UK. The nice thing about the phonics screen check is that it's kind of an overview. It has real words and alien words, and it can maybe be a great place to start if you have a child who has already gone through phonics, or maybe they're in an older grade, like grade 3, and you want to kind of just do an overview check to see where their phonics knowledge is. This phonics screen check will be really valuable for those pupils. But just coming back here, I can see that this assessment's not done. If I hover, reading, he got 65%, but writing has not been completed. And I'll see that same thing here and here. So now you might be wondering, why are there different stars? And that's a really good question. So the solid star means the most recent assessment. So his first reading assessment, he got 81%, which is green, and that's great. Then in step 1, group 4 to 7, his first assessment was 78%, which is in the orange category. It's quite close to green though. Green is 80. It's not too bad, but I might think, do you know what? I'm going to reteach a few things and I'm going to reassess him because I want him to be a solid green. I know him and he is capable of that. So I've got the time and I want to do that. So if I do that and reassess, then the solid star is his most recent assessment. So he's at 95%. That's great. That's excellent. Okay, so the solid star is the most recent one. Then on the next assessment, step 2, units 1 to 6, I assessed and he got 72%. So that's not great. And so I've again reteach, reassess, and he's up here. So I'm starting to notice with him that he's needing a little bit of extra time or extra support in order to really be in that solid green. But that's where I want all my pupils to be. And if I have the time and the capacity, then that's really what I want to do. Now, if I want to dive a little more deeper into this, I can. All historical assessments will be kept so that teachers can look through them. And this can be really important because sometimes you start to notice trends over time. So I can click on any assessment and I can click between reading and writing and see all the information down here. This is the exact test. Everything is saved. And you can see that this was the reassessment. So I can open it up and see there's a snapshot at the top that tells me his letter sounds and tricky words were weak, but his words were 83%. So you can open up and see all the information, which can be really powerful and valuable to see. And again, I know you guys, this is like a lot of information. I'm giving you so much information right now, but just remember there are videos to walk you through, and let me show you where they are. So they're on the side right here, training videos. If you click here on training videos, you will see so any new updates, we've got a new update, which is this assessment tool. There's a little video about this right here. Brand new people who've never been on Jolly Classroom, there's a little video for them to watch here. The assessments, this is probably where you want to spend your time. I've created these videos to really guide you through step by step, because what I'm giving you today in this 1 hour is probably quite overwhelming. It's like a general overview, but now what I really suggest is that you dive in and really understand. So this first video is how to set it up. I suggest you watch this video, you set up your pretend class, and then you go on to the next one. You watch the video, etc. So it's meant to be organized so that you don't have to watch all the videos all at once, because that can be kind of overwhelming, but you want to just walk through and really understand the program quite deeply is really valuable. One more thing I want to show you, and I know I'm getting short on time, there's so much to show you, but another thing I do want to show you is that let's pretend I look at my pupils for a second. I want to look at my whole class. And I want to look at Aaliyah. Okay, Aaliyah, she's in the orange and she's gone down. I want to see what's going on here with Aaliyah. So her focus area is on reading words and reading letter sounds. Her writing is strong, but her reading is not strong. And I've come over here to her overview, and I see that her reading most recent score was 64, which is a big drop from her first test. And she hasn't been assessed on writing yet. So, okay, that's fine. But before I go any further, I'm thinking I need to reteach something. So let's look at how she did on this assessment. So that's a second assessment, and it's reading. So let's look at the actual test. Here it is. Her letter sounds were at 50% and her words were at 50%. Tricky words, great. Okay, so she's doing really well with remembering her tricky words, but her letter sounds are not as strong. So I need to target this information, reteach her, reteach, and then I'm going to reassess. Now, here's the best part. When I'm ready to reassess her, so I'm going to go into this start assessment. So it was the second test, and it was Aaliyah. So I'm going to find Aaliyah on my list, and I'm going to reassess her right now. So here is the questions. She's already had this test. I can tell because it says import latest results. If I click here, her old results will pop up. So here they are. I can see exactly how she did. Now I can print off the sheet and get her to test with the paper, or I can sync them up with flashcard mode. That's fine. I can do that. I can set up a second device. Now this sound here, E, last time she got it wrong. Do you see how it's red? She got that wrong last time. So I ask her now, let's pretend she gets it right. I click correct. It moves to the next card automatically. This sound she also got wrong last time, but this time she got it right. So I click it correct. This she got right last time, but let's pretend she got it wrong this time. So, okay, I'll mark it wrong. Okay, and so on. So I go through the test and I'm marking them all. And when I get to the end, you will notice that see how it's changed automatically? So it's reflected what I put in just now. And equally, I can do it this way too. I can mark, yeah, she got that right. She got that right. Oh, she got this wrong again, so on. And then at the end, the most important thing is to save it. If I save this, let's mark a few more right. And let's go look at her results just quickly. So let's mark a few more right. Let's save it. So it's going to save it. Let's give it a second to think. No, it's saved. Now let's go look at Aaliyah right now. Let's go look at Aaliyah. So there she is. Okay, so we just did another reading test. There it is. Remember, her last score was 64%, and it was a solid one, right? If I hover over it, I can see how she did. Group 4, she got 8 out of 12. Now, in group 4, she got 11 out of 12. And now she's at a green. So she's at 82%, which is what I want. I don't need to reteach this or reassess her on this because she's at green, which is great. Now, again, you might be thinking, well, how often do we need to reassess? And again, it really comes down to how much time you have, what are your goals? And every teacher and every country, everybody's going to have a different way to approach it. But the nice thing is that you can use it how it works best for you. So if I just come back over here to just mention a few more things. So best practices, it's really important that teachers are following whatever government or school requirements that they may have. So every person is going to have different requirements around the world. So that's really important. It's also important not to teach to the test. So we are not meant to show them words ahead of time, except tricky words, of course. Tricky words, yes, we are teaching them ahead of time and we are actively trying to get them to memorize them. But I'm talking about we don't want to show them the CVC words that they're meant to be saying or writing ahead of time. We don't want to do that because it's not about that. It's about being able to see whether they can or cannot do the skill. And during the assessment, we're not trying to, it's not a teachable moment. We're not trying to show them or guide them. It's really a time for us to see how they can do independently. And also, we don't want to make them feel stressed. So we don't want to tell them when they're getting them right or wrong. It's just a time for us to reflect on how they're doing. The tool is really there to save teachers time and to make powerful insights so that they understand what they need to teach or focus as a whole class and what individuals need a little bit of extra support. So it's not meant to overwhelm you. And I know it feels overwhelming, especially when you've got a new tool like this. It feels really overwhelming. But remember, I have created all those videos to help you to understand it. The whole assessment tests really do follow and match Jolly Phonics. So it's really important that you understand that, and it will provide teachers with really insightful information to target pupils early on so that we can help them to learn to read and write.
Jen,
Some people are
we have a
asking,
question, Jen,
yeah.
and it's from Claire, who said, how long does each video take, and how long would it take to set up your own class, for example?
Yeah, really good question. So does she mean the training videos, I think?
Yeah.
So these videos, you can see the timestamp at the top. So the times all vary. I tried to make them really short and to the point. However, I would just say that when the videos about analyzing class data and pupil data are a little bit more in depth, because there's a lot for me to really make sure that you understand about it. So they are a little bit more in depth, but you don't need to watch them until you've started to do your own assessments. So I've also tried to make it so that teachers can watch a video, take action, watch a video, take action, as to not overwhelm them.
And are the tests available in print and precursive?
Not yet. So at the moment, everything that we've created is towards the British assessments, because there's also one sound group that we need to change, the AL sound. We need to change that for the American English. And then at that time, we will also do the American print. So at the moment, it's all more British based.
I think one of the most important things that comes from this is the identification of children before they go into year 1 and year 2, where they have gaps in their knowledge. We're able to fill those gaps before we move on with teaching any more sounds to make sure they're secure. And that is one of the things that has come back with the people we've interacted with about the assessment app is flagging up those children who are kind of like in danger before they move on. And that was critical. That was a real key part of this assessment, wasn't it, Jen?
Yeah, and a lot of teachers were manually calculating data. So they were trying to find who were their weakest learners, and they were doing it by hand, which was taking a lot of time and it's a lot of pressure too. Whereas this is meant to help take off that pressure and do all that work for you so that you can quickly color. You can see by the colors quickly who you need to really focus your energy on. And I think also one other thing, I'm not sure that I emphasize this enough, which is this point here about, oops, is about flexible assessments that can support SEND. So sometimes I worked with a few SEND teachers and they were mentioning that traditional assessments just don't work for them. They can't sit still for that long of time. And also their pace of learning is at a different rate than a typical class. And so that was another reason why we broke up the reading assessment into smaller chunks. So you can just click group one and just assess them on group one. And then when they're ready for group two, you can just assess them on group two. So you have that ability. And the pace of it is really up to the teacher to decide what works for them. But I will also just mention, because a few people were asking if you could use this assessment tool with other SSP programs. And the answer is no, you cannot, because we have designed it to fully match the Jolly Phonics program so that the sounds are in that order and all the words, because remember there's the word reading and word writing part of the test, that it all has been carefully selected to make sure that you're not testing them on things that they haven't learned. So, and also tricky words, because different programs do that in a different pace or a different order. So it matches our program exactly.
It's complete fidelity to the program. I had a question about how often do we do assessments? Well, the prompts are there, as
Yeah.
as Jen mentioned right at the beginning. We have the prompts for when to do that. And another question is there a report format for parents? Well, again, this is something at the discretion of the teacher and the school. It's again one of those things that this is designed to be working in classes and homeschooling and things, but what do you say about that, Jen, about parent reports?
Yeah, so we have plans in the future to provide support for parents. But what I would say, so we haven't built anything yet, but we're thinking about it. But one thing that a few teachers have said to me, because I asked them that question, how much information would you want to provide your parents with? And almost all the teachers said to me they didn't want the color code system for parents. They felt that that would get them really upset and feel frustrated. And that's not the goal of it, anyways. It's not to say that your child's here or there. The goal is to inform the parents so that the parents know what they need extra support on. So, what we're thinking about creating, and again, I'd love to hear feedback. What we're thinking about creating is more of a sheet that tells the parents the sounds and the tricky words that they need support on. So, if you imagine a page that sort of looks like a little bit like this, where you would have the sounds and any, so you wouldn't have these words because again, we're not teaching to the test, remember? So we're not going to include words, but we would have the tricky words. So any words that they got wrong, any tricky words would have like a card with the word on it. So the child could take this printable home and then the parents could reinforce those words that they're getting wrong. And same with the sounds. So sounds and tricky words would be the focus there. That's the feedback I've had so far, but we haven't built it yet, but I think it would be really valuable. And again, when you're out working with schools and you're connecting with them and hearing what they like or don't like, feeding that information back to us is really valuable.
There's a good question here from Blanche, which is, can this information be passed over when the child goes into a new class?
That is another thing that we're looking at building so that it moves up easily. At the moment, within the school management tab, which I didn't really explain to you, this is going to be organized by whoever the school admin is. And at the moment, there's only one person that can do it, but we're going to open that up to a few more slots. So if I'm the school admin person for my school, that means that I have the ability to add the classes. So these are the classes of my school. I can easily add another class here if I want to, and I can also assign teachers. So let's pretend me right now, this is me. I'm assigned to these three classes. If I want my class, say butterfly, to move up to say Chris, so maybe next year he's teaching my butterfly class, then I can select butterfly and add it to his group so that now the whole class is moved with him. So we've got that ability, but I know sometimes pupils switch classes, so then that would be needed to be done a little bit more manually for now. Yeah.
And the question is, when will it be available? Well, as trainers, you will have got a link that you can be playing around with it. It was sent a few weeks ago, and also the costs of it. So, Jen, would you like to explain how this is going to be distributed out to trainers and schools?
Yeah, definitely. So for you trainers, you can get a free Jolly Classroom voucher code. So if you email Marcel at this email at the bottom here, support@jollyclassroom.com, he will provide you with a free code so that you can get access to Jolly Classroom, which includes the assessments. As for cost, at the moment, it's free for all of this year, as in 2025. Now, people that don't have Jolly Classroom, it's included for people who already subscribe. But for people who don't have Jolly Classroom, they would either need to subscribe or if they want just to purchase assessments, it's £100.
When you are emailing Marcel, please make it clear because we get a lot of emails about codes for Jolly Classroom from trainers. So if you make this explicit that you are looking for the Jolly Assessment one included, that would be a big help for him, I
It
think.
will be, no, it will be the same because the thing is, today we're launching it as in for everyone. So
Oh, brilliant.
anybody who opens up Jolly Classroom from today, assessments will be included in it.
Brilliant. Well, I
Yeah.
think overall we can see that this is a great addition to our teaching and training toolkit. And Jen will be doing a webinar in May. So this is a great opportunity to play around and think of those questions that you have. And then we have at the end of this month, we have Sarah who will be doing Jolly Literacy. And then at the end of May, you have another opportunity to see Jen describing how the assessment works as part of our monthly webinars. And of course, if you're coming to the conference, that will be streamed as well. We will be actually doing live together, won't we, Jen?
Yeah.
Actually, all plugging in together and working with it. So there are many opportunities. But as Jen said, the best thing to do is just get on there and play around with it. It is amazing. It will make a huge difference to children and their learning pathway, their flight path with Jolly Phonics. And additionally, another asset to your training delivery. You will have this that you can use along with Jolly Classroom and also the other assets we are developing. So it's all looking really good, Jen. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would definitely say that I think this is something a lot of teachers and schools have said they really want. They
Yeah.
really want more information so that they can change their teaching or provide support to those children that really need it. So I think that from the training perspective, it's really valuable for you to be able to show this to schools. And if you feel that it's a bit overwhelming, you're always welcome to just go over to the training videos and share, the introduction, the program overview video. You can actually watch that video with the school that you're training and show them where this information is. You can always do that if it feels a little bit scary to you. But like Yvonne said, we really want to empower you to be able to be more confident to show it. And so we will be providing more support. So we've got the May webinar, and then we also will be doing more like a workshop style kind of practice at the training conference in July.
Yeah. And again, what I do feel is this is going to make a huge difference to children's learning journey using Jolly Phonics. And more than anything, identify areas that can be consolidated with like my next class. If I'm teaching and I'm getting this information, I can adjust my planning accordingly to make sure there's successes. So we're delighted with the product. We introduced it to the University of Sunderland, and the trainee teachers were just absolutely wowed by it. So this is going to make a big difference to all of us. So well done, Jen. But it has been a collaborative voice, hasn't it, Jen? Listening
Yeah.
to trainers, teachers, schools, and also parents. So well
Hmm.
done. Well,
Hmm.
we are coming to the end of this trainer webinar. There will be an opportunity to look at this through the recording that you will receive, I should imagine within 48 hours. And thank you, Jen, for spending some time with us. It's early morning there, I do know. And thank you, trainers, completely,
Yeah.
always, for being there to support us and being there for us. So have a
And
super
just
afternoon. And
quickly, just one sec, Yvonne. Sorry, I just wanted to answer Frida's question because I just want to make it really clear that assessments is going live today, which means that any school that already has Jolly Classroom, they've already purchased it, they will have access to this from today for free until the end of this 2025 year. So that's why this video here that I have the updates when people log in for the first time, this video will pop up so they can watch the video and see why does my nav bar look suddenly so different? It will explain all of that and explain the assessments.
yeah, and it's also an opportunity for you to interact with schools again. If you've done training in the school and they see this coming, they will be excited to interact with you and get some training. So wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Jen.
All
And
right, thank you
yeah,
guys.
and thank you guys again. Looking forward to seeing you at the end of April with Sarah Wernham and Jolly Literacy. So bye for now and have a lovely day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.